Hello, welcome to the Let's Talk Kids Health live show, episode 66. I'm Dr. Narissa Bauer, your host. I'm a behavioral pediatrician and CEO of Let's Talk Kids Health. As you know, the concept of this show is to share information about behavioral health, parenting, and family wellness. Now, each week, I bring you topics and guests to help me advance this mission so that we can all talk together. Now, let us know that you're here by commenting, asking questions, and liking at any time. And in a little bit, your questions will be asked to my guest. Now, the replay will be immediately available after the broadcast. However, we're going to be rebroadcasting each episode every Thursday at 8 p.m. So please share this episode with anyone you think who would benefit. And if you don't want to miss future episodes or maybe check out the past ones, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Narissa Bauer MD, follow my blog Facebook page, Let's Talk Kids Health, and join my free parenting discussion group. Now, with that all out of the way, today's topic is all about what to do today to help prepare your child for their future with special guest Nellie Harden. Nellie is a family life and leadership coach who focuses on helping parents eliminate power struggles with their daughters and helps them grow into confident, wise, and respectful young women that are actually ready for the world. She's a wife, a mother to 4 daughters, author, speaker, podcaster, homeschooling parent, and adventure chaser. She has a degree in biology and psychology and a diverse background. Behavior background, actually, from humpback whales in the South Pacific to teens and parents in homes across the world. Now, I mean, come on, she's going to be so fun to talk to today. She believes in a life of intention and making dreams and goals realities. She knows that the best way to help the world is through one room at a time, living one room at a time. So, well, Nellie, thank you for coming onto the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here. It's such a pleasure.
I am so excited to chat with you. And, I had such a great time chatting with you as a guest on your podcast. And I just knew after that discussion, we needed to reconnect.
I agree. I totally agree.
Yes. And, maybe I just start off, since I know I read your bio there, but could you tell us a little bit more in your own words about what experiences, but what really caused you to have this passion for doing the work that you do today?
I guess in one word, it's just the root. And you're like, what? And so, yes, I have had a wide, diverse, degree of experiences in my career, in my life. And, everything from, my own personal story and my own, I lost my father really young. And then leaving home and I left home when I really wasn't probably quite ready looking back, and I didn't know it yet. My parents didn't know it. We thought we were, but we really weren't. We just weren't equipped. I was not equipped. And so and no fault of anyone involved, we just didn't know, and a lot of things happened because of that. And so looking back now, and everything that came from that, and just everything in my life, and getting married, having infertility, and then going through the other end of the pendulum with 4 kids in 4 years after a couple years of infertility. My husband went into cardiac failure at the age of 31, and we almost lost my daughter in a drowning accident. And I've been in behavior working with humpback whales in the South Pacific, but it really just, all of these things come down to, hold the phone. If we can prepare our young people even better and really equip them to go out into the world equipped with a strong foundation of confidence, right? Belief in themselves, and that all 4 parts of wisdom, from practical to interpersonal and how to relate to people to how to even understand my own emotions, right? That's a big problem today. And then also respect of ourselves and respect of others, how to carry on an actual conversation with somebody, even with differing views than you, and come out still with mutual respect and adoration for one another, right? If we can equip our young people with that today before they ever leave home, then we can literally change the world one living room at a time. And so when I say the root, it really is the root of everything, comes down to what we're putting into them during this childhood experience. And so that I was like, you know what, if I'm going to work on something, I want to work at the root level so that I can affect as much positive change as possible.
Yes, yes. And I really love that philosophy. And I think too, I mean, as parents can all agree, I mean, when you finally have the gift of having children and being their guide through this journey called life, I mean, I think many of us want to do right by them, but kids don't come with parenting manuals or anything like that. And I think a lot of parents that I see struggle a lot with thinking about, am I doing what I need to be doing? Is there something else I should have done? And there's a lot of shoulds, guilt, shame, at times
Absolutely.
too. So I'm
So
really excited to talk with you about this.
yeah, and you hear that all the time. There's no manual. And you're darn skippy. There is no manual that comes with your kid because no one else can write the manual on your kid but you.
Yep.
And so when I am working with families, that is my main goal. I want to help you be the expert on your child because your neighbor can't, an influencer can't, your mom can't, right? All of these things. No one can be the expert on raising your child except for you. And if we take the shoulds off the table, like I am talking like full fledged, just knock them on the floor, and we just say, wait a second. I'm going to take shoulds off the table and I'm just going to ask myself, what can I do in order to move this forward today? And if I mess up, I'm going to just face it. I'll be vulnerable to those outcomes and say, you know what, yesterday when we were trying this, it didn't seem to work very well. Do you think it worked very well? Because I didn't think it worked very well. So let's try this today, right? And if you can, during the first half of childhood, a parent is building for their child, right? They're defining almost everything in them. You are, right? All of these things, and giving them literally almost spoon feeding them a lot of their self-esteem and their confidence and things like that. And then there's this grand transition that happens mid-childhood when they start to go out into the world, which is a beautiful thing. And it has to happen then. We cannot wait and keep spoon feeding them all of these things throughout their entire childhood. And then when they get this magic adult pass at 18, say, peace out, good
Yep.
luck. And now you have to figure it all out. No, like if during the second half of childhood, if we can be the adulting educators, I need a shirt that says that I'm an adulting educator. There we go.
I love
Um,
it.
there's driver's ed and there's adulting ed, and that is what
Yes.
we're doing. And that's why I'm so fortunate to have honestly worked in the animal field for as long as I did, because you see the very raw cause and effect of, okay, so this is literally the objective of this childhood experience in the animal world. Now, humans add a whole big layer of messy, emotions and many, many more mental layers, definitely. But when we can take it away and say, okay, we are literally preparing them for adulthood during this childhood experience, then we can start to practice, right? Start having those practice sessions of what happens when this, what happens when that, with other people, with yourself, with parents, right? And so it really is important to start practicing during the second half of adult or of childhood in
Yeah.
order to prepare them and give them what they need for the foundation for the rest of their life.
Yes, I am wholeheartedly with that. I love that philosophy. I mean, I think too, there is that fine line of what we do for our children, but then also allowing them that space to learn that they can do it for themselves.
Right.
But we're still there, so we can sort of be the safety net too. But to allow them to garner those experiences so that they can build their own self-confidence, right?
Mhm.
And their self-efficacy, their agency. To be ready to go. I guess if we could start off with, this question of, you know, what are the three biggest attributes our young women are leaving home without being equipped with today, from your standpoint?
Yeah, I would definitely say it is, and this is what I work in. It's confidence, respect, and wisdom. And So many young women are having this false, inflated sense of what they have been defined as to them, what confidence is. Confidence looks like likes. It looks like when you walk into school, people start, coming up and talking to you. It looks like an A on a paper or a test. It looks like college is seeking you out. It looks like scholarships, right? Whatever that is. Instead, and that's all outside in, right? And
Yep.
what we need to do is help our daughters and all of our children. I just happen to focus on parents of young women. I found I was equipped to do that, having four of my own between the ages of 12 and 16 right now, 17 next week. So, but anyway, helping them live inside out. So when they wake up in the morning, instead of saying, oh, how is the world going to affect me today? How is school going to affect me today? How are my friends going to affect me today? You wake up and say, how can I affect the world today in a positive way? How can I change the world today? How can I make a positive effect in my family today, my siblings today, my friends today, my teachers today, right? And it's very simple, but it is not easy, right?
Mhm.
It's a simple switch, but it is not easy to do, especially when they're infiltrated every day and bombarded by all of these distractions of should this, should that, all of this. And this is what it means to be confident. Are you confident? Right. And then you're going to find all of those 5-question quizzes on name your social media or what have you that are if you don't pass this test, this quiz, then you're not a confident person. And they will take that to heart and believe it. So instead of helping as a parent, we're not going to be able to shut down the world, but we can build up our child. And that's what we need to be able to do.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, like you said, it's that what can I do to
Hmm.
affect the change? What can I do today? What can I take control of? And I can imagine, for those families who are watching, listening right now, I mean, after the several years that we've lived through, in the pandemic where we just feel like we have no control,
Right.
it's going to be a lot harder to sort of promote that, but it's so important. I mean, I think anytime, even before the pandemic, anxiety, depression, all of those issues were there for mental health in young girls, young
Yeah.
people. But especially when we're put to the test, it can be really hard to sort of take a more proactive approach, so to speak. So how would you even, help families or young girls start with that mind shift?
Yeah. Well, a couple of things here. So during the pandemic, I would argue to say that we didn't have less control over ourselves. We actually had more control than we ever had before. We just had no idea how to use that control in
Mm.
a positive manner. We had more time than we ever had before within our families. So I homeschool my younger three. This is my last year. I have 3 weeks left after 7 years of
Wow.
homeschooling. So I did it before it was, COVID cool. But so I've been homeschooling for a long time. And so a lot of these families now are seeing one another much, much more than they ever had before, which means you have even more influence into each other's lives, right? But they weren't used to it, and we were thrust into it literally overnight. And so we didn't have the breeding ground, the teaching ground to say, oh, so now you're going to have this greater influence, so this is what you can do with it in order to make it a positive thing,
Yeah.
right? Everyone was just thrust into it, and we have news 24/7 saying, the world is terrible. So it was a scary time. And so that's definitely one part of it that I just wanted to say too. But secondly, the reason I work with whole families and I don't just work with teen young women or parents is because it is a team effort, and TEAM. I know
Mhm.
teen and team sound a lot like, but it is a team. A family is a team effort, and I can't just work with the children because the parents are their biggest influences in their lives. So if I just work with the children, then I'm missing a huge component of their lives. And if I'm just working with the parents, then we're missing the subject of all of our work, right? And
Yes.
so when I work with families and we're having, weekly meetings and we're talking and all of these things, it really is a beautiful thing to just come together, unlike any way that you've ever come together before, and build what the vision looks like. So many children and adults today just don't even realize that they have such control, in not a bad way, in a beautiful way, over their own lives, how they're going to show up every day, how they're going to build their identity, right?
Mm.
And identity isn't something you go find. It isn't, I need to go and, do all of this stuff around the world, or I need to go and find myself. No, if you are, that's only because you're finally getting the solitude that you need in order to actually think for a while and
Yes.
have some introspective thoughts of, so how do I react when someone, does this? Or how do I feel about this? It's not about going and finding it. It's just about having the thought process and the skill sets and mindsets in order to build who you are, build your identity, build your core values, build your core beliefs. And those are all very intentional activities that just don't fall like dominoes, right? It isn't chance. They are built over time. And parents have this beautiful thing I call inevitable impacts. And those are the impacts that happen to your children, whether you want them to or not, or whether you're intentional or not, or frankly, whether you're there or not. And so we might, if we know they're going to happen, which they do, spoiler alert, they do, let's make them great. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think it's more that the solitude, like actually slowing down
Mm,
long enough to be able to have that time to reflect, be introspective.
right.
And I think too for kids, as parents of kids, we have the ability to sort of guide them to do that work because
Yeah.
again, so much of their childhood is like consuming things and slowing down, appreciating, being mindful and, stopping to kind of think through something is so valuable. So valuable.
So this just popped into my head as you're saying that, because it is so true. Last summer, my oldest daughter, she was 16, went on this trip, and it was an amazing trip. She was gone for 2.5 weeks. I was a nervous wreck the whole time because I didn't even know where she was. It was one of these, and I'm not joking, like drop them. And you're probably going to think I'm crazy, but we knew the people running it and I trusted them. But
Yep.
it was like this, go drop them off in a barn with, three other young women, and then this female leader that took them is going to drive them somewhere, and they're going to be somewhere for 2.5 weeks, and then they will be back in the barn. And I was like, oh my goodness. But we knew people that had gone, amazing adventures. They always go somewhere new. But my point is, she went on this, and there was such a huge, profound change in her when she came back. And all calm and beautiful ways. And in talking with her over time and, what she was doing, she said one of the most impactful things that she did, and one of the things that created some of the most profound change, is that every day they sat still for 1 hour
Mm,
just with a journal. It was just them outside, and there was, and I forget the name of it. It was this some time point that they crossed. But when you're sitting, and they were in nature the whole time, it was camping, like tent on your back type thing. And but when you sit out in nature and you disturb it, right? When you go, I mean, think about when you go sit in your yard or whatever, you're disturbing things that are living life. But once you're out there for long enough, 20, 30 minutes, I think it was right around 30 minutes. Anyway, you just become a part of the environment instead of an obstruction to the environment. And when you're doing that, you just get to start to see and be a part of life in a way that you were never before, because we're always living as these disturbers, right?
mhm.
But when you're there for long enough, you can just become. And she said that was one of the most profound things, to just sit there long enough to become a part of nature and just think and just write for that hour.
Hmm.
And I was like, that's something I can do on my front lawn, you know? And talking about for myself, because it sounded like such a beautiful process. I was like, I need to go sit out my front lawn for a while. Go sit on, we live a stone's throw from the beach. I can go sit on the beach. So, but yeah, it's just giving yourself that allowance to think.
Yes. Yeah. And, we all know we live in this technology driven, fast paced society with lots of dings and whistles and all of these things where, I mean, that sounds just so lovely.
I know it sounds so like, I don't natural romantic, I'm like, yes, take me now.
I know. Well, so Nellie, I with all the work that you've done working with families, how do you think we can better communicate with our children? Because I think what you're saying, a lot of this is sort of instilling in them those values of being able to slow down, introspect, think through for ourselves and do. But
Right.
but in doing so, we need to have that good two-way communication with our kids. So
Right.
how do we start that process? What are some tips that you have?
Well, the first one I would probably say is to drop the power struggles, because if there's a power struggle, that is a big red flag that there is friction happening in the communication realm. There is misunderstanding happening. And if there's misunderstanding, then either you're not understanding them, they, you, or both. And we all know that if we go to a foreign country and we're trying to get directions to somewhere and they don't speak English, it's really, really hard and frustrating for all parties involved, right? And that can happen in your own home, even if you're both speaking English, right? Or whatever language you speak in your home. And so you want to be able to speak in a way that they understand you and you them. And it's a beautiful thing when you can get to know one another on a much deeper level. So, knowing how each other takes in information, right? And in order to do this, you have to be open and honest, and be able to say things like, when you say this, this is what I hear and what I feel. Is that what you mean, or is it something different? Right.
Mhm.
And giving them the allowance to do the same thing. Because when everyone has their own perspective, I mean, you and your children and your family, spouses, everyone has their own perspective because it's built off of our entire life experience. And if you can come into a conversation and understand that there's different perspectives, then you're a lot more open to be able to be curious and explore what that other person's perspective is, right? It isn't a parent going in there and saying, this is what I need you to do. And they're like, well, I didn't mean that. Well, what else could you have meant? Right. You did this and this means this. And they're like, well, that's not exactly true. And you have to give them allowance to be able to say that. Now, I told you, a family is a team, but the parents are the captains, right? The parents are the captains, and there's a reason. We've been adulting longer. We
Mhm.
have a lot more experience for longer, and we're teaching them. We are guiding them in this. That doesn't mean that they can't teach us things, because our kids teach us a lot of things. Parenting teaches us a lot of things, but still we are the captains in the driver's seat of this parenting childhood experience. And through 18, through the 6,570 days, and even thereafter for a while, right? There's a great transition that happens in the middle of childhood. There's another one that happens at the end of childhood going into adulthood, right? And we're never not parents, but we are going to lose our highest impact, highest influence time zone, which is childhood. So dropping the power struggles, being curious, right? And
Mhm.
connecting with them. You have to connect with them on what they're interested in, on what their perspectives are, and just ask so many questions and be able to actually sit and listen. The moment that you start getting all agitaty, inside of you, and um, oh, sorry, end of a hard day, right? It's the end of a hard, long day, and they're saying something, and you just want them to go to bed, or you just want the day to end, right? Taking a deep breath, even just pressing the pause button and saying, you know what, I really want to talk to you about this, but I'm really not in the best mental space to talk about that. And I want to be able to give you my full attention and my full respect. And I can't do that right now because I'm just exhausted. So can
Mhm.
we talk about this tomorrow at, you set up a time if you need to or what have you. But it's okay to table things, because if you're in your fight or flight, area of your very, your monkey brain, you are not going to be able to logically talk to them about anything beyond a yes, no answer.
Mhm.
And so it's really okay to table things. So power struggles, really being curious and tabling if needed.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, one of the things that I had to teach my kids early on, my kids, and I know other kids do this too, is like, when you're really busy and they're like, Mom, can you buy me this right now? It's like, I'm like, thanks for telling me that you need that, but I don't have time right now to think through that. Let's put that, on the back burner. We could talk about it when I'm like can focus. So, I mean, sometimes they're a little bit sneaky that way. They're
Yeah.
like, hey, can I get this right now? And I'm like, yep. So I learned how to sort of put a pause and then say, acknowledge, I understand that you want that. I don't have time to do my research, especially when it comes to apps and things like
Oh,
that
yeah.
on technology. I've just kind of learned to say, you know what, that's really cool that you want that, but I need to do my research. We need to kind of have a discussion about this. So I'm not going to tell you yes or no right now, but thanks for logging in that request. So you know, um, but I love that. I love sort of having that ability to table things. And, I mean, I think just saying that out loud to those listening, I mean, because I feel like sometimes there's that pressure to sort of attend to things right in the moment. And when it comes to our kids, of course, sometimes we're like, yes, we need to do that. But it's okay to say, you know what, I am not in the right headspace. I want to really give you 100% of my attention, and I am not feeling it right now. Or I'm kind of busy and I'm thinking about too many things and I can't give you, the attention that this deserves. Can
Yeah.
we table this? Um, so thank you for sharing that, because I really feel like that's a huge thing for parents to sort of take away from today's discussion.
Well, the second part of that too, which I feel like I definitely need to mention, is you have to be able to build trust. So the connection between you and your child is made out of truth and trust.
Hmm.
And so when you say, can we table that? You actually do need to have a space later on that you are readdressing. And it can't be just this kick the can down the street mentality, right? And so having something that they can depend on every day, even, I know for my house, 6 to 9, that's family time. And so when we need to help them with any homework, or we do need to talk about something that they want, or I mean, you name it. You guys are all parents too. You name it. They need something or want a discussion. That is the time that we do that. They know between 6 and 9 they can count on us to be able to have room for those times. And if you keep kicking it down the road, then you're going to break trust. And once trust is broken, then truth can easily be broken too. And it takes a long time to mend those things back together. It doesn't mean they can't be, but
Hmm.
it does take a lot longer to put together than it does to break. It can take a moment to break.
Yeah, no, I agree. Did you come up with that? Like, did you tell your kids over time that 6 to 9 was that dedicated time? Did you have a family meeting about it, or do you just sort of say
All of the above.
yes? Okay.
All of the above. Yes.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, so Nellie, I think we talked about the last question about how we could put an end to power struggles with our
Hmm.
kids, right?
Yeah.
Unless you have other tips there with that.
Yeah, I would just say, I always say in my head, drop the rope, pull up a chair. It's just a great mind reminder for myself, in order to, okay, I'm recognizing that we're in a power struggle here. I'm recognizing the facial expressions on my daughter, or the huffs and puffs or whatever, and my heart racing. There's all those physical indications as to what's happening on the emotional and mental side. So once those start to happen, it's like, okay, drop the rope, stop struggling, pull up a chair, and just talk, right? Okay. So, and they won't want to. And it's okay. They won't want to. But remember, you are becoming the expert on your own child. And you cannot be an expert if you don't study. Just like anything else. If you don't study, you can't be an expert. And you study by asking questions and learning the answers to those. So, can you tell me why you're so frustrated right now? Can you tell me why you made that choice? And one question is going to lead into more questions. And you will naturally know when the end of that conversation is had. And you don't want to sit there for 4 hours. You don't want to sit there for 1 hour. I mean, attention spans are going to wane, and you don't want them dreading any time. It's like, oh, here comes another talk, right?
Yeah.
So you want it to be short and sweet, I don't know, maybe 10 to 20 minutes, maybe max, but you want it to be encouraging, right? And very comforting and very compassionate, just to know where they're coming from, how they got to where they are, because their behavior is telling you one thing. And then the reasons why that behavior happened are something completely different. And unless you ask, you have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, I tell kids all the time in my Teach Me ADHD class, right? I mean, nobody can read your mind. And
Mm,
so what we're doing is just looking for clues. There's no shame or judgment. We just need to learn how our brain thinks and works. And so, giving them permission to have that space to share what they
yeah.
think, what
Yeah.
they feel. And I really love that, Nellie. Like drop the rope, pull up a chair. I mean, I have that visual of a tug of war, it's kind
Right.
of like this never ending thing. And you're like, oh, okay. Let's just, sit down and kind of figure this out because we can't keep going at it like this. So,
Exactly. I
yeah,
mean, I'm a very visual person, so I have a lot of
me
these. And
too.
even the other day, one of my daughters was reading something, and I just could not formulate the words in my head to mean anything. So I was like, "Can I see the book?" And they took offense to that right away because they thought that they were messing up and I was going to check them. I was like, "No, you said it just fine. That has absolutely nothing to do with it. It's my brain that's not working, and so I just need to see the words in a line so I can actually see." And that right there and not alone is a perfect example of if we didn't have an open relationship where I could have just told them, no, it's my brain messing up, it's not yours, they would have been offended for the rest of the day, thinking I didn't believe in them and how, good of a reader uh, they are. And so even just the smallest things like that open communication is essential.
So good. So good. Well, so those of you watching, if you want more of Nellie's goodness and all these pearls, please make sure to hop on and listen to her 6,570 Family Project podcast. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Where to find it?
Yeah, you know what? I am an easy peasy girl. I like to keep it super simple. So you can find everything on my website, which is just nellieharden.com, including the podcast, including I have a parenting workshop all about igniting your daughter's joy in the teen and tween years. And I have a private parenting group too. And all again surrounded around this group of parents in the second half of childhood with their daughters.
Great. So I am appended that, put your website on there. So
There we go. There we
is
go.
it .com, right? Did I
Yep.
get that right?
Yep.
Okay,
You got
awesome.
it.
Yeah, so please make sure you look at the website, go follow her, subscribe, listen to the podcast. Everything that she said today. I mean, it's just I feel like wow, like I'm so excited to kind of be visual and think that the next time I have some sort of issue, which happens, you know. So thank you
Yep.
for that. Thank you for that. And so just so that for those of you watching, my next week's guest is Shelley King, who's a speech language pathologist here in Indiana. She'll be talking to me about hunger mealtime games and bring all your questions about your power struggles, your food fights, and all of that. And Shelley is the girl. She'll be able to help us navigate some of that. And then as you're thinking about any topics or guests that you want to bring on, make sure to just reach out to me at Dr. Narissa at letstalkkidshealth.org. And just shoot me questions, topics, guests, and or maybe you're someone who has expertise in this area. So I'd love to chat with you. As you know, we're at Let's Talk Kids Health Live. So, and then just a quick reminder, next week, Monday, is finally our live author chat with Dr. Victoria Dunkley. She's an integrative psychiatrist. We've been reading her book, Reset Your Child's Brain, where she talks about electronic screen syndrome. And so
Mhm.
please please check that out. And if you haven't read the book, but you're just curious because, screens and screen time and technology battles, like tune in and be there live. You can ask your questions, 4:30 p.m. Eastern time here in the parenting discussion group. Okay, so that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Nellie, thank you so much for coming on and giving us some of your time. I really enjoyed our conversation today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
All right, well, we'll see you all next week. Thanks again.